Welcome to the Pharmacy Future Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Future Leaders is part of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, focusing on pharmacy student perspectives, interviews, and the future outlook of our pharmacy industry.
This is Jocelyn Paonita, founder of the Scholarship System, and you're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I'm your co-host, Tony Guerra, for the Pharmacy Future Leaders Podcast, broadcasting from the Des Moines Health and Public Services Building at DMAC's Ankeny campus. Connect with me via Messenger on Facebook at TonyPharmD1, or you can find over 1,200 pharmacy videos at TonyPharmD on YouTube or my website, memorizingpharmacology.com. Today, we're talking with Jocelyn Paonita, who is the founder of the Scholarship System, a 6-step process that helps families pay for college with scholarships and avoid student loan debt. She's helped families secure over $805,350 in scholarships with her online course. And if you'd include interest, we'd probably get that number over $1 million. Jocelyn, welcome so much to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we always start off with the same question just to kind of get a baseline, but everyone's leadership road is a little different. Tell us what you're doing now and how you got there.
Sure. So I am now fully focused on the scholarship system, where we help families and students figure out how to pay for college, hopefully with as little to zero student loan debt as possible. And it was actually quite an accidental road getting here. I went to college and I was able to get 6 figures in scholarships, completely paying my way. And so I graduated debt-free.
Shut the front door.
And
6 figures? Oh my gosh. Sorry,
yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, I love the enthusiasm. So that was actually, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I thought everyone knew how to get scholarships. And so that was quite ignorant of me. I had no idea until I graduated college and started seeing all of my coworkers, have these huge debt payments that they were having to make. And of course, because of that, they have way less disposable income and all that stuff. But I went into the corporate finance world. I wasn't doing this straight out of college. But what I kept receiving were phone calls saying, Jocelyn, how did you do this? Because we need money for college. And I started answering them, and I realized I sound like a broken record. I'm saying the same thing over and over. And that's when I realized this is a system. It's a process. It's something that if they just implement the right steps and know the right things to do, the right places to submit and find scholarships, the right, stories to tell, they can do the same thing. And so I decided to create the scholarship system, which is exactly, it's a course now that students can go through to learn the exact steps that I took. And now that, like you mentioned, a bunch of other students have taken and they've gotten results from it. So, and it's been a wild ride, but it's been a blast and it's so rewarding.
Okay, well, I'm going to try to connect my experience with scholarships here at DMAC. So I'm at a community college in central Iowa. Each year we have a golf tournament where many of the alumni, many of the local leaders come together. They raise $100,000 actually in scholarships. And we have 35,000 students, yet they only get maybe 600, 700, 800 applications. So many, sometimes even some scholarships go unfulfilled or people don't get them. And the thing I keep hearing from the students is, I'm not going to get that scholarship. I can't get that scholarship because of grades. But when you break it down, it's 50% essay, 25% finances, 25% grades. So tell me some of the misconceptions that some students might have about being able to get scholarships. Because I keep hearing over and over again is, I'll never get that scholarship.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I will say that a lot of parents have the same misconceptions too. They don't even push their children to apply for the same reasons because they're like, my kid won't get it. They don't have the perfect GPA. So you hit the nail on the head. First and foremost, there are tons of scholarships out there that are not focused solely on GPA, or some of them don't even ask. We actually at the scholarship system now, we're giving back. We give out our own scholarship. This was our second year doing it. And we ask for GPA in case we need it for like a tiebreaker. We have yet to use it. We don't even look at GPA. We haven't had to for 2 years now. So that's just a perfect example of where GPA does not explicitly, qualify you or disqualify you. They're looking for students that are willing to, be worth the investment, that are going to take this money and make a difference with it. And if you can show them that with your stories, with your essays, with your involvements, whatever it is, then it can compensate for a lower GPA. Absolutely. And to go off that, you also kind of hit on another common misconception, and that is that, there's a million people applying to these scholarships, but you yourself, you've proven, you've said, that only hundreds have applied for this, even though thousands could. And the same thing happened with us. We have 2 scholarships, one for non-members, one for members only. And the non-members one was shared thousands of times on social media. Can you believe we only got 7 applications?
No
7.
way.
And that is 7. Yes, 7. And we were giving out, I think, 2 awards. So in the end, the ratio of receiving that was huge. It was huge.
Well, I think as I'm thinking through this in our listener base, we have kind of 3 groups. We have the groups of students that are going to be in pharmacy school, so they're in undergraduate, or maybe they're even in high school going to undergraduate. We have graduate students or professional students in pharmacy, and then we have those that maybe have some children that will be going on to school. So let's be selfish here. And I have 3 6-year-old daughters. So let me start with the parents first. How can you kindly tell your kids and have them fill out these things? Because I can't imagine myself saying, all right, girls, you guys are 16. It's time to fill out the scholarship applications. They'll say, all right, Dad, we don't want you and Mom to pay for a thing. We'll fill out every application we can possibly fill out. That's how I see it. So tell me how it might go.
Sure. Yeah, that's a fair question. And we get parents, where they say that. They're like, I don't know if I can get my kid to do this. That is a completely fair, that's a question. That's a very fair question. So that said, we have a few suggestions. First, if financially it makes sense, I actually have a mentor of mine that he pays his kids $5 for every application that they submit. So to them, they're actually getting a reward every application. He actually started doing this with them when they were, I think it was like 11 and 13 years old. So by the time they hit their junior, senior year, when they should really be focusing on this, they're going to be scholarship machines. But awesome. He can afford to throw $5. Yeah. So financially, incentivizing it is always a plus. I've had some parents where they offer, okay, if you can get this much in scholarships, we'll give you this much towards when you graduate, maybe buying a rental property, or we'll match you, or whatever it is. But also, to go off that, the biggest thing that, in my opinion, I've seen for the families that I see success with, they choose a specific amount of time that they are solely focused on scholarships. So I call these scholarship Saturdays or scholarship Sundays. And this is when the family agrees, okay, for an hour or maybe 2 hours, we're going to sit down and solely focus on scholarship applications. And, mom and dad, they make snacks or whatever it is, and everyone sits down and they sit down and do it together. And, while that absolutely, I know how crazy things are, but there are a few benefits of doing it this way. First and foremost, if you're talking to your daughters and saying, all right, girls, did you apply to scholarships today? And then the next day, did you guys apply to scholarships? And then the next day, did you apply to scholarships? It gets super redundant, but also you're creating this kind of rift between you and them because they'll feel like you're nagging them, right? But if instead, Saturday or Sunday, it's designated scholarship time, you can take a break from nagging them Tuesday, the rest of the week, because
Sure.
you don't need to nag them until that day. So it kind of alleviates some tension, but then of course also it gets them in the mindset where they know, okay, it's time for scholarships, versus it just feeling like this heavy, constant to-do item that's on their shoulders.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about maybe, have you had medical school students or pharmacy school or nursing school students, kind of that professional group with healthcare being so big now? Have you had any of those kinds of scholarships that you've kind of approached or have expertise in?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, one of them is, so my husband is a firefighter, and one of his buddies coworkers has his girlfriend. She's a nursing major, and we were just chit-chatting one night when everyone was getting together about what I do, and she's like, oh gosh, I would love to get a scholarship. She's nursing. And the next day I sent her a list. I did a little bit of research using, some of our methods, and I sent it to her. And then the next time I saw her, she was like, oh yeah, did you know that I think it was like $500 or $900 from it? And I was like, no way. So actually, now that I think about it, I don't even think that's in our tally for results because she's not an official student. But that's just a perfect example of, she didn't even think that. And actually, her father makes a decent amount of money. And so she's like, I'm not eligible. And that was the conversation we had that night was, no, you'd be surprised that there are scholarships out there if you're showing that you're dedicated to this profession. And lo and behold, she got money. So absolutely, there are scholarships for these majors. I will say with health professions, they want to know that you're actually going to major in it. So pharmacy, the classes that you guys have to take, I would never. So actually, I always say that if I didn't do business, I would have loved to do pharmacy, but I'm so weak in sciences. That said, nursing, pharmaceutical, any kind of medical field, the classes are tough. And so you will see some scholarships that say you have to be a sophomore or older in college because they're, as a freshman, they're not quite sure if they believe that the student will actually pursue that major after freshman year. But if you make it to sophomore year, you're already way more likely, if you've still stuck with it, you're already way more likely to actually major in it. So that is one thing to keep in mind.
No, that does make a lot of sense. So we've talked a little bit about the parents and getting their kids in, and then maybe that professional student or close to professional student. What about the high schooler? Where does it start? And then maybe you can tell me a little bit about scholarship seasons, because you mentioned that and that there's a rhythm to it, which makes sense to me now intuitively. But can you tell me a little bit about how the high schooler would do it and what scholarship season means or what they are?
Yes, I would. I love that. So high school students, in my opinion, the best time to start this is junior year. And that's when I started. And, so to rewind a little bit, my experience was actually pretty painful for trying to find my free ride, which is why I created the scholarship system, because I didn't want anyone to have to go through what I did. But when I started looking for scholarships, I started my junior year in high school, and I thought I was applying to what were legitimate scholarships, but in reality, they were just scam is a tough word, but they were, a very slim chance of actually getting anything from them. I actually have yet to ever meet anyone that has gotten money from these, but they're the ones where it's just, a quick form and you submit your name to a drawing or, it's a sweepstakes scholarship is what I call them. And so as a junior in high school, of course, I want to go for the easiest ones at that point, and those were the ones. So, and of course, as you could imagine, I didn't get a penny from them. And so I had to kind of figure out, okay, what are legitimate scholarships or not? And if I didn't start that process earlier, then there's no way I would have gotten the money that I received. Now though, is with the scholarship system or without, there are scholarships that are available for juniors. So that is the time we want them to start applying, because also they can see, okay, this scholarship is asking for this kind of involvement or that kind of involvement. Where am I lacking? What areas do I need to build up in? And they can do that. They still have time to do that versus seniors. They're kind of under the gun. They're applying for college applications and all this other stuff. So to add involvements, extracurriculars that they didn't already have on their plate, that's it's something tough to ask. But that said, senior year, that's when scholarship seasons are extremely important. And scholarship seasons, that's not an official term. That's something that I created, that I've kind of coined.
Sure.
But I say that there are really 3 scholarship seasons. You have the fall semester, and this kind of starts August through Christmas break. You have spring, which is your January through April, May. And then you have summer. Okay. So, this is nothing groundbreaking, but the reason that those are scholarship seasons is because fall, that is when a lot of seniors don't think to look because they're focused on admissions, or they think to look, but they don't really focus on actually submitting them because they're so under the gun with admissions. Now, if they were to start junior year, even end of junior year, they could knock out a lot of these applications over the summer, kind of before the admissions madness starts. But if they are a senior, in my opinion, fall is it's one of the best times to submit applications because there's simply less competition. Now, spring is when everyone actually starts thinking about the bill. So the spring, the second season, is when you start getting a little bit of a mad rush because everyone starts feeling the burn. They start feeling the pain of having to pay for college. They now have in mind what school they're going to, what kind of expenses they're looking at. So that's when competition ramps up. Now, major deadline months, you're looking at October is actually a really big deadline month. December, January time is a big deadline area. And then April is actually a pretty big one. Now, summer, I am seeing more and more. So that third scholarship season of summer, in my opinion, that didn't really exist back when I was doing this. That is something pretty new. So I'm seeing deadlines get later and later. And actually, we make our deadline, I think this year was like the end of July, so that we can give money to students that are looking for those last minute dollars. And so now, fortunately, there are scholarships that are very last minute for that following fall. But you're also going to deal with everyone rushing to apply. So in my opinion, there's less scholarships during the summer season, but there are way more applicants. So again, it comes back to fall, in my opinion, is the best time, but those are the three seasons, if you will.
Okay, well, in talking to you, I completely forgot that I did get a scholarship going to college, and it was completely by accident. My dad went with me to visit, and we went down, and I completely forgot about this, and it was a big one. I went down with my dad, and I picked the University of Florida because it was a $15 application, which is, of course, the reason why you apply to college. But I picked this $15 application. My uncle was in Florida, so I was like, all right, let's just go down there. And I knew that, it was out of my budget. And so, of course, my dad's super chatty. Like, he's talking to everyone. And he's like, well, Tony, why didn't you apply for the honors program? I said, well, you have to have a 3.5 and such on your SAT. And I had the SAT, but I didn't have the thing. Come to find after lunch, he's gone over to the honors program, gone and talked to them. He said, oh, yeah, this is back when you printed brochures, no internet, late 80s. And he's like, Tony, that was an or. They made a mistake. So you can be in the honors program. No way. So I brought you an application. So he brought me over the application, and then they said, hey, you're in because of, such and such. You've gotten admitted to the school. Now you can get admitted to the honors program. By the way, we provide out-of-state tuition waiver for 2 years. So I completely went from out-of-state to in-state tuition in a lunch. And I completely forgot about that. That was, understandably, it was like 25 years ago. But yeah, so tell me a little bit about how on-campus might help somebody get a little more of an idea. So, you're looking online, and I feel like everybody does everything online. Is there any give getting into like talking to people? Is there a process for, hey, my kid really wants to go here or here, but unfortunately, this one is really, giving a much better package. Any kind of negotiation tips that you've heard of through your experience?
Oh, I love this question. Awesome. Yes. Okay. Despite the world and today of lack of communication face-to-face, it does absolutely benefit students to go in and talk to people. So for those, we'll just go through the groups that we're talking about here. So for high schoolers, they should definitely walk into the guidance office and say, what kind of scholarships do you guys have that have been sent to you? So we still have some committees that are still on the paper method, believe it or not, and they just mail a letter saying, hey, we have these scholarships. If your students want to apply here, and they send it to the guidance office. So high school students should go into the guidance office and ask them, do you have any money I can apply for? College students can do the same. So, maybe if more college students asked about the scholarship that you mentioned, then there would be more applicants, right? So going into their bursar's office, the financial aid office, and asking about any kind of scholarships, that's always worth their time. Even if it's, maybe they're going to be a freshman, during orientation, they should go in and ask if they didn't already apply for them. But also as upperclassmen. Now, the other area department, if you will, that you can ask is the specific school. So the pharmaceutical school, for example. For me, I didn't realize that until I got into college. And so I was a business major. And so I walked into our business advising office and I said, I already talked to the financial aid office. I've gotten what I can from them. Do you guys have any scholarships specific for business students? And sure enough, they did. So that's another place that students can go in and ask, is there a specific college within the university to see if they have any money, their specific department. And they maybe it's for sophomores older, but ask now, find out so that you can apply. And then as far as negotiating, this is something that I'm seeing more and more often. There are, statistics, we're a number of students to enroll in college. So the population count, removing the population count is only going to decrease, actually, the pool of students that they can get to attend their college. And so because of this, I think that colleges, we're going to start seeing a little bit of a swing to where they're competing for certain students. I actually had students of mine that we had sent them back and said, university, what you got from our University A, and see if they'll match it. And I haven't necessarily seen matching yet, but I have seen them bump up a little bit and try to meet at least in the middle. So that is always a conversation worth having. Now, we actually have a really robust blog post on this, so they can go to our website. Our website's thescholarshipsystem.com and just go to the blog, but it's about specifically negotiating tuition. And I will say that a lot of universities, they have a process to do it. And so you don't want to just go in there, pitchforks flying around. You want to go in there respectfully and with a game plan.
Yeah.
So, we would be here for an hour if I was to cover it all, but they should definitely go there because we have a step-by-step guide. So.
Okay, great. Well, I know some people are going to want to get in contact with you. What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, that website is the best. So if they go to thescholarshipsystem.com, we have a bunch of freebies. We have a free essay writing guide. I know a lot of students are always terrified about the essays, or they don't want to put the time into it. We have an awesome 3-step writing method that we teach, and it makes scholarship essays so much less painful, and actually way more creative. So we have a free guide on there if they want to download it. We also hold a free webinar, which they can find a link to in there. But really, the website is the best place to start because we have so much free information for students and parents.
Okay, well, you seem like a really organized person. Just some questions I usually ask at the end, but what's the best daily ritual that you have to kind of keep your work on track, maybe with scholarships, maybe with just life?
Oh, okay. So I am a big paper planner person. I have checklists. I'm a paper person. I cannot do it digitally. So I have a planner that it has on the top, it's the one thing, and it has the one thing for the day. And just having that one thing that you have to accomplish, some people call it eating the frog, right?
Sure.
If you can just figure out what is that one thing that you can do today that will get you, move you along, or maybe it's the one thing that you've been avoiding doing. If you could just knock that out, then you can consider it a good day. And I try to do that every day. So fortunately, my planner kind of forces me to, but I'd say that's something that helps me a lot.
So what's the best career advice you've ever given or received? You've gone from, traditional finance and having a job to now being your own entrepreneur. What advice do you give out, or what advice have you gotten?
Oh, I love this question. Okay, so I would say, and this I got from Mitch Matthews. He's phenomenal.
He's
he does
in
the
town
Big Dream
here. Gathering. Yeah, he's in Iowa. He's in Western. He's like 15 miles from here.
Yes.
Where I am right now. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Small world. So he's fantastic. And one of the things he's talked about is a bridge job. And what he says is, if it gets you from point A to point B, you're crossing a bridge, right? So it's getting you somewhere, then you can learn something from that. And just to build off that, what I say when it comes to career advice for myself, and this is even if it's your own business or working for someone else, you can say that you are adding tools to your toolbox, and that's his phrase. If you can say that you're building qualities or experiences, or you're learning something that you can use towards your end goal, then you should be there. And vice versa. Maybe if you're in a situation where you're like, oh God, I don't know if this is for me, or then try to make it into a learning experience. So ask yourself every day, am I learning something? Am I pulling what I can out of this so that I can get to the next step? And it's the same thing with running a business. It's the same thing with creating a business. Is what I'm working on right now going to help me in the future, whether it's to grow this business or to grow another business or what have you. So I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to career is what can you do to make sure that you're adding tools to your toolbox? And thank you. Shout out to Mitch Matthews for instilling that in me years ago. And I still stand by it. It was fantastic advice, and I love passing it forward.
You obviously inspire people. You're very positive. Just talking to you, I'm like, I could get a scholarship today. I just feel like that kind of energy. I was like, I could write that essay. Darn it! Even though I was an English major, so I enjoy the essay, but I would reject myself based on back in the '80s. They used to count your house or your parents' house as part of your financial thing, and then so I rejected myself a lot to my parents' chagrin. But what is it that inspires you?
I think it's making a difference. It's understanding what your purpose is. And, when I talk about how much money I'm seeing students get, sure, it's great to say, look at us, it works. But more importantly, it is so rewarding to know that they now have less student debt that they have to face when they graduate. I have seen the consequences of debt, student debt and non from people that I love. And it's terrifying. It's fortunately, majors, I mean, they're, if they pursue a pharmacy degree and get a job in it, you and I have talked about this, they're way better off than many students in a sense of salary and being able to pay these. But on the other hand, they have to borrow more. So, but that said, no matter what, it doesn't matter how much you're making. It's awful to see your money go to the student, to the banks. And so really it just goes back to understanding my purpose and knowing that I am helping, even if it's just a drop in the bucket, even if it just pays for books this semester, if it's $500, that's something that they didn't have to borrow, that they don't have to pay back plus interest. And that is what gets me up in the morning.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the Pharmacy Podcast. I know that our listeners are going to get so much value out of this.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I loved it. Thank you for having me.
Okay, if you're interested in being on the Pharmacy Podcast, Pharmacy Future Leaders, contact me on Facebook at TonyPharmD1. Otherwise, we thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Pharmacy Future Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag Pharmacy Future Leaders.